Thank you. Representative LaTurner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Since stepping into the Oval Office, President Biden and his administration have pushed their political agenda on our men and women in uniform. This is completely unacceptable. When top defense officials allow politically driven priorities to affect military readiness, the DoD is failing at its job and making us vulnerable on a global stage. Our service members sacrifice so much to protect and defend our country. They deserve better than to be treated as a social engineering experiment by the left. Over the past couple of years, concepts of diversity, equity, and inclusion have pervaded our country's institutions, even causing presidents of what were previously this country's most esteemed universities to believe that they have the political cover to defend calls for genocide. Curriculum centered on critical race theory and DEI concepts teaches students more about their differences than their similarities and shared values, which runs counter to the core ethos of our armed forces. The Department of Defense's mission statement and #1 objective must always be to provide combat credible military forces needed to deter war and protect the nation's security. The most pressing problem today for force readiness is the ongoing struggle with recruitment, and pushing partisan politics on our armed forces is one way to ensure we continue moving the wrong direction on this issue. We must ensure that our military leadership is more focused on the threat from our greatest adversaries than enforcing a politically correct, divisive ideology that is counterproductive to maintaining a cohesive military unit. I look forward to working with my colleagues in this committee to hold the administration accountable, particularly on issues that jeopardize our national security. Mr. Thibeault, in 2021, a professor of political science at the U.S. Air Force Academy published an op-ed in the Washington Post defending the teaching of critical race theory and arguing that it is productive for members of the military to understand a fuller, let's quote, understand a fuller version of American history. Why do you disagree with that sentiment, or what would you say in response to it?
I don't know the specific case, Congressman, but my issue is when training in the military focuses on what someone believes or who they might be because of their assumed background based on the color of their skin, that engenders really complicated and divisive assumptions in a unit that needs to survive based on cohesion. And so if I receive a training that says, oh, you're a white man, and which means you have blind spots on race or sex, that means a soldier or an airman joins a unit with the presumption of distrust already built into their DNA. But I would say, you know, it should not be surprising that the Air Force Academy is teaching that when they decide their admissions classes based on race-based percentiles. It's not called a quota, but in effect, those are quotas that are as harmful as any training the Air Force promotes.
Thank you. Mr. Lohmeyer, along with your testimony, you submitted dozens upon dozens of quotes from men and women who had retired from the military. Those quotes are critical of the current woke culture of the military, and many former military service members cite DEI efforts and wokeism in the military as part of their motivation to get out. Why do you believe that DEI policies have been a cause for reduced recruitment over the past couple of years?
Yeah, the quotes that I submitted in Exhibit 1, for the record, there were approximately 1,000 unsolicited quotations of feedback from our service members that are in that document. And the professor at the Air Force Academy that you're referring to is Lynn Chandler Garcia, who essentially bragged about teaching critical race theory. And this is my area of expertise. And the reason it's so divisive is because it was literally, this is not just figure of speech, literally created by Marxist ideologues with the specific purpose of dividing people into groups for the purpose of fomenting cultural revolution, period. Period, full stop. I'll back that up 100% all day. I studied it for years. I studied at DoD strategy schools. I studied Marxist cultural revolutions around the world, and it looks and smells the same everywhere you go. And so it wasn't surprising to me to see the same base commander who was threatening forfeiture of pay if he caught a whiff of Trump support, that he said, no one will stand in the way of the Black Lives Matter movement at my base. What's interesting and sad about it is that it was okay to show a support ideologically for the movement. but not to criticize the same movement without being accused of political partisanship. And this is how this goes. It's politically partisan if you disagree with the party line. It is not politically partisan if you toe the party line. That's why it's divisive.
Thank you for your answer, and I want to thank all three of you for being here and for your service. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.